Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Jessica Rothgen. I am a library services consultant here at OCLC, primarily focused on our Kapira mobile app, which is a custom-built mobile library app. Also, museum passes and Library of Things collection reservation software. So I am so delighted for us to welcome Dr. Audrey Barbakoff. I feel like Billy on the street today, yelling at everyone. But I'm so excited for you to be here. Dr. Barbakoff is going to discuss digital equity through community partnerships. So I'll hand it back to you. Warm welcome.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here because this is a topic that I am so passionate about, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with all of you. All right, so I am the CEO of CoLab Capacity, a community-centered consulting firm focused on social good. So that's me. I've got 10 years of experience in public libraries, so coming to you deeply rooted in that perspective. So let's just take a moment and look at this photo. At first glance, it just looks like a couple of kids sitting on the curb playing with their laptops while some fast food employees try to talk to them. But what you're really looking at is a heartbreaking story of digital inequity. This photo went viral because these two girls are sitting outside on the curb in front of a Taco Bell to do their homework. During COVID, when schools went virtual, these girls had nowhere else to go for internet access. They couldn't afford it in the home. The libraries and schools were closed. So in order to keep up with their schoolwork, they spent their days sitting outside on the curb. These two girls aren't the only faces of the digital divide. Common Sense Media estimates that there are 12 million K-12 children in this country still today, even after all of the work that we have done to get laptops and hotspots and connectivity into kids' hands during COVID. And of course, children aren't the only ones impacted. Tribal lands in particular have been desperately neglected by broadband providers and infrastructure. Many rural communities don't fare a whole lot better. And that is all before we ask who is able to afford internet access, even in the areas where it is available, and who has been provided with equitable opportunities to learn the skills to become comfortable and confident in a digital space. Libraries are not new to this idea, right? We have been at the vanguard of combating the digital divide for decades. But something has changed. What the pandemic changed is that photos like the one you just saw, stories like the one you just heard, have been moving the people around us, our legislators, our communities, our leaders, to see the impacts of the digital divide that we have been fighting against for a long time. So the moment for change is now. And libraries are uniquely positioned to lead the way because of the deep work that we have been doing in our communities for such a long time to combat digital inequity. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we can do this work with partnerships. So a story that I want to tell you here is about a particular partnership. Like a lot of you, we received some CARES grant funding to purchase laptops and hotspots. And then we were faced with a problem. How are we going to distribute these so that they got into the hands of the people who really needed them the most? If we just put them in our catalog and circulated them like books, they were going to wind up in the homes of people who already knew how to use the online catalog, right? Who already knew about the library, people who were already connected in some way, who already had some kinds of resources. So how were we going to get these resources into the hands of people who really needed them the most? Partnerships. So instead of a model of loaning one hotspot to one patron, like a book, we bundled our hotspots and our laptops, and we loaned batches of them to community partners who already had trust and came from the communities that we were hoping to reach. So I'll give you a couple examples. We circulated a majority, actually, of our items to tent cities and shelters and places serving people experiencing homelessness. So some of those groups, they then decided, well, what's the best way to get this to folks? And they decided on kind of a group sharing model. So rather than circulating individual items to people, they would set up kind of a little network in the physical area so that anyone who was there could use the connectivity. On the other hand, we partnered with some low-income senior living facilities. And they put those laptops and hotspots individually in the hands of people who were least able to leave their own apartments. Right? We worked with an organization that served Spanish-speaking entrepreneurs, and they gave them to people who had been enrolled in an in-person business skills class that had moved online. So we gave the stuff to the partners, but then they were empowered to decide the best way to connect with their communities, the best way to distribute. So in that way, we were able to focus on the populations that we knew were going to benefit the most from this equipment. So once we did that, we realized we had another problem. Now we had things in people's hands. But when people come into the library to use the technology, it's like half about the technology, right? It's about you. It's about your help. It's about the librarian, the library worker. It is about what you bring in support, in walking people through, in digital literacy, in just confidence that there's someone there. Well, when we circulated items, we didn't bring that with us, right? We can't circulate you. So we had to think about another step to take, and this involved another partnership. So we created a digital navigators program. It was the first digital navigators program in a library in Washington State, as far as I'm aware. And to do that, we partnered with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, or NDIA. They invented the digital navigator model. A lot of it is what you do already, right? It's appointments, essentially, in this case, virtual or phone appointments, to help people with technology skills, to help them learn basic digital literacy, and also to help them get connectivity. Right? So how do you find affordable in-home broadband? How do you find a device that you can own so that when your circulation period with us is over, you're not left high and dry? So this is a story of how digital equity can grow through partnerships. And I wanted to give you an example, but it's not the only thing I want you to leave this story with. I want you to know that you can do this. A lot of times when I talk about technology, digital equity, people start to feel nervous, right? And now, so I don't know about you all, but when a lot of people were out getting their bachelor's degrees in computer science, I went and got mine in theater. So sorry, Mom and Dad. I don't know how to lay fiber optic cable. So it can feel like we don't have the expertise, right? Or we don't have the resources to do this digital equity work. But I want you to know that you do. Because a lot of these things, these are just the skills you already have. Think about the program that I just described. Loaning laptops and hotspots, circulation. Helping people through appointments, connect with resources for basic digital literacy skills, to find out whether they qualify for various subsidized broadband programs in their communities, that's reference, right? The topic might feel a little scary sometimes, but you already have all of the skills and the resources that you need in order to be really successful in making an impact in your community with this work. And to prove it to you, I'm going to go even further out on a limb and tell you about a completely bananas project that I worked on, at least from my perspective. Something that I would never, ever have thought of on my own in 1,000 years and would have had no idea how to do, actually put into action if I did think of it. But with partners, it was actually incredibly easy. So about a year into the pandemic, a group, a BIPOC-led coalition of researchers and nonprofits and academics called me up and said, hey there, we'd like to put an antenna on your roof. And I said, huh? With my usual wit and charisma. So what they were doing was creating a community wireless network. So these are actually co-ops that are owned and operated by community members. They train members of the community to do the network maintenance and upkeep. And about 90 households are able to be served with internet in their homes, either completely for free or at a very low cost that they themselves choose in order to help maintain the network. So a really radical re-envisioning of what access can look like. Did they call me up because I am a technical genius? Obviously, yes. No, they did not. They called me up because we had a building right smack in the middle of the neighborhood that they wanted to reach, and we were a literal high point in that neighborhood. The library is on top of a hill. So we were just physically well located. We had this big, visible public building in a space, in a community with connections that was right where this group wanted to be. They did their install. I went and asked my facilities guys if we could drill a couple holes in the roof, I was pretty nervous about that, let me tell you. And I was shocked to find that they just went, okay, great. Because it is so rare, I think, for our support departments to get the opportunity to really see the impact that they're making directly in the community on patrons. So they were actually really jazzed to get to participate in this project. So the moral of that story there is just ask, you know. You'll be surprised at how much people want to come along with you when you're doing work together. So for us, really easy, we just let them up on our roof a couple of times. So, you know, we brought a public space, we brought expertise in digital literacy, we brought alignment with a mission, and they brought the technical expertise. So now there's this amazing digital equity project that can happen in a community that is desperately underconnected. And it didn't really take any technical expertise from us at all. Each partner brought the assets that they had to share. And that is a really important point, because sometimes we don't start because we don't think we have all the answers. Right? We're worried people are going to ask us technical questions that we don't know the answers to, or that you know, that we don't know how to start, that we don't have all the resources that we need to finish. So I am here to tell you that you don't need that. We don't need in the library to swoop in and tell our communities what they need. They don't need that from us, especially given that a whole lot of our profession looks a lot like me. But nice middle-aged white ladies. Right? Our diverse communities do not need a bunch of nice middle-aged white ladies swooping in to tell them what they want and what they need and how to solve their problems. Our communities know what they need. And they have the brilliance and the strength and the assets to solve those problems for themselves. What they need is equitable redistribution of power and resources to allow that strength and brilliance to shine. And the library can be a force for that. We can be there empowering our communities with this asset-based perspective. They bring the answers, they bring the know-how, they bring the passion. And so the solutions that we create together are sustainable because they are deeply rooted in ongoing, real, meaningful desires in the community, not in like a cool pandemic response thing that we wanted to do ourselves. So even though some of these programs are pandemic responsive, they are all sustainable beyond the end of the pandemic. Right? I want to get us away from talking about the short-term digital divide, the sort of problem-focused digital divide, and into thinking about long-term sustainable solutions in partnership with our community, things that don't just respond to the pandemic, because these needs in our community to stay connected are not going anywhere, and neither are we. And we can do this work best when we do it together. So that is all from me, and I'd be happy to take some questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steph. I'm from Web Junction. I wanted to point out that we've got a terrific webinar from Audrey on Web Junction. It was just recent. Was it a couple weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago.
You can find that on webjunction.org. There's also another one. I'm going to read the title. It is called, bear with me. Hey, while I'm looking this up, if you guys, when we're finished, if you guys want a t-shirt, we've got a whole pile of t-shirts over there. You can go and just like grab, they'll scan your badge and they'll give you a t-shirt.
Now I know why everyone's hanging out here.
No.
I thought it was for me.
The other webinar is called Opportunity Out of Adversity, Digital Access in Rural and Small Libraries. So we've got a couple of things where you can dive in deeper if this is interesting. And Audrey is also going to be available right now for questions. Do you have a question? Oh, hold on. So the question is, how do you find the people who need access that the library can support?
Yeah, thank you. So I am also in a community. So these projects took place in King County in Washington, so right around Seattle, a community that we tend to think of, right, sort of as tech central, very connected. But the county did a study in 2020 on broadband connectivity and found that actually 2/3 of households had some kind of barrier, right? I mean, the basic, are you able to purchase some kind of internet connection that comes into your home? That, like you, our community, most people would check the box yes for that. But when they did a deeper dive, what they found is, well, maybe people don't have enough connectivity to do what they need to do. Maybe you've got a really basic, connection, but now you've got 2 kids doing virtual school and 2 adults trying to work full-time jobs and, someone's streaming Hulu at the same time, right? That is not enough. Or that people have barriers in terms of digital literacy or digital comfort. So first of all, I'll say like that big number of like X number of percentage of people are connected is often pretty misleading. And there can be a lot underneath that. So it's about getting in touch with your community to find out like what those actual barriers are. And so that's going to add to, I'm going to use segue there and to answer your actual question, which is how do you reach people? And I always for everything want to advocate for starting to build relationships before you start thinking about programs. Right? Like at the time we're like, oh, we want to do a digital equity program. Yes, you can go out and do a scan and say, who are the community groups already doing this, right? What are the coalitions out there? What are the individual organizations? Who are the individual people even making a difference in this space? And call them up, cold call people, talk to them, or find someone who knows them, who's connected via your LinkedIn or whatever, like work those connections, find someone. I have never had anyone be mean to me when I've cold called them. When you say you're calling from the library, people are happy to hear from you. They love the library. Even if they can't talk to you today, or they don't have time, or they're not doing that work anymore, or they've moved halfway around the globe, they're still going to be happy to hear from you. So don't be afraid to just kind of call people up just to reach out. But ideally, you would have been doing this work already by getting out there into the community, joining coalitions. So we started a lot of this work by just joining like one of the state representatives had a real interest in digital equity and started pulling together meetings and coalitions. I don't think anyone invited us, but we showed up anyway. And after a while, people start to think of the library as a natural partner in that space, and then they start to come to you. So all about those relationships.
So the question was about whether or not you had to deal with the issue of loss of those devices.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. That's definitely something that has happened, and we built that in from the beginning. We knew that we were specifically trying to work with populations that were vulnerable and that were often fairly transient, either people experiencing homelessness or people who might move a lot, things that go to kids, then they disappear for a couple months over the summer, right? We don't have contact with them. They've moved to another school district. So not even through malfeasance, but just because we're dealing with a population that's on the move a lot. Yes. So the first thing was that when the devices we purchased came from grant funding. So we were able to, obviously not that like we're not going to be good stewards of grant funding, of course we are. But I think when it's public taxpayer funding, you maybe think about that in a little bit of a different way. So using grant funding kind of supported us being able to say right off the bat, like we expect there to be a certain amount of loss and damage. One of the things is with hotspots in particular, the hotspot itself is not really worth anything, right? What's worth something is the data plan, and we can easily cut off the data plan, right? So if that hotspot goes missing, the data ends, right? So there's not a big incentive to take those. But ultimately, I think as with, so I'm thinking of libraries that go fine free on their books, right? And as with that, I think when we come from an equity perspective, we just take we have a different mindset on cost and loss and what it means to serve our community, right? That it's less about being punitive, it's less about controlling every single thing, and more about saying the really important thing is to get services and items and knowledge into the hands of the people that we most want to serve, and to trust them, and then let's deal with the other stuff on the back end. Thank you. Yeah, okay. No, you're good. Okay, so I'm going to repeat them back to you kind of one at a time, and we'll go. Okay, so the first one you asked, I think, was just device updates, and I'll start there because that's pretty simple. So we did circulate the devices with a time limit, so like a 3-month period, I think, initially, at which point they came back to us, and we would update them and push them back out. The partner organization, because they're responsible for distribution, is also responsible for collecting them back up and getting them back to us so that we can update them. We also were like, sort of like I was saying before about I did not get my computer science degree, like we're not the tech squad. We would, if something didn't work, we would swap it out. We held a few hotspots and laptops back in reserve to be able to fill gaps, account for things that went missing, or deal with technical problems. We would swap stuff out, but beyond that, that was basically all we would do. So we would get you a new one. We could also connect you with like the vendor support, right? Like if you're on a T-Mobile hotspot, we can get you the customer service from T-Mobile. But yeah, we really needed to limit that for sustainability purposes, right? We can't have our staff kind of like trying to figure out how to troubleshoot really detailed technical problems. That's not going to be a good experience for our patrons, and it's really not going to be a good experience for our staff. Okay, so that was one. Which one do you want me to tackle next? Great, so for folks who need assistance, what's kind of the customer service aspect? That's what the digital navigator piece is really about. So someone would come to us and be like, hey, okay, now I have this device and now I want to use it to do something, right? But I don't know how to use it well enough, or I don't know how to do this particular thing, or I need some basics. So that's what the digital navigator support would do. We would be able to say to that patron, you know, this is more than a 5-minute question that I can just answer over the phone. Let's book you a half-hour appointment, right, with someone who's had some training to be able to help you. And again, like, we're not necessarily going to say, oh yes, here's how you solve that problem. That's not our expertise. Reference is our expertise. So what we are going to be able to say is, here's a YouTube video that can show you how to solve that problem. Here's an answer that was posted on the community help board about that issue, right? Here's an organization that teaches a class. So providing those reference and referral resources to help people learn so that they can navigate and accomplish their own goals. And then the last question was about sustainability. Yes. So we designed all of these programs to be sustainable in the long term. Certainly, anytime you have equipment, at some point you're going to need to replace it. The actual items are generally going to be grant funded, so that would require going out and looking for some more grant money or finding some operational funds for it. But digital navigators as a service, for example, that is existing staff who take a couple hours out of their week to provide this particular service, right? So that's designed to be sustainable. It was set up with the schedules and the capacity of existing staff in mind. Some of the other things, the community wireless network, we're just providing the space, right? It's the nonprofit that sets up those networks, trains community members who then do the ongoing maintenance. Right? So each time that we set one of these up, we think about sustainability. We think about, is this a long-term project? Some projects aren't, right? Sometimes you're responding to a short-term need, and you design something that's going to last for the length of that need, and then that's it. And libraries, hear me on this, stop doing it. When it's no longer useful, stop. Say no. Don't try to do all the things all the time and never stop anything. But when it's designed for long term, we need to think about that from the very beginning and bake that into the plan.
Audrey, I have a question.
Yes.
I know you've talked about how when a project ends, the relationship continues.
Yes.
That is a great thing, but how do you even get started with the partnerships?
Thank you. So my answer is always relationships, right? So I think ideally you start and end with a relationship, or you don't end with, with a relationship. That the program or the thing that you're doing is just one manifestation of your relationship. It's a stepping stone that takes you further and deeper into your work together. So ideally, you form a program not because, you individually or your library had some great idea, but because you were engaged with your community and your community had a great idea and you thought, hey, the library can contribute to this, right? We have something to offer here. We have some resources that we can give. We have some power that we can give. We have some space. We have some time. We have some expertise. And then you make that program or service with the community, right, that is going to benefit from it. That way you know it's relevant. You know it's culturally responsive, right? You know it's the thing that people want that's happening in the way they want at the time that they want because they're making it for themselves. When that's done, you've deepened your relationship with that partner by doing that thing together, right? I mean, think about like your own friendships in life, right? I mean, it's great to catch up with people and to talk with people, but like when you dive into something with somebody, when you go through something with them, that relationship gets so much deeper, right? And so much more meaningful. So you don't just want to stop then, right? Like you're in a better position. What's the next thing? And you don't have to roll right into something new, but you want to keep that relationship going, stay in contact, stay aware of each other's goals, aspirations, the things they're working on and excited about. Get coffee, once a quarter or something. You don't have to call them up every day, but just stay connected because there will be another thing, right? And if you focus at the idea, the purpose of what you're doing is the connection, is the relationship, then the programs and services will kind of bubble up naturally. And I think that's a shift in libraries. I think we tend to think about what's the program, what's the service, I've only got X amount of time.
Transactional.
Transactional, yes, exactly. And if we're going to do equity work, we can't be transactional. We have to be relational and transformative.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here.